What's up, everybody? I'm your host, William Blazeski, and you're listening to the SignatureCAST, where we talk bodybuilding, business, and everything in between. Today is a very special episode. It is our first segment of Health is Wealth, where we give you the tips and tricks of keeping your mind, your body, and your wallet healthy. To my right is Jeffrey Meshel, best-selling author, and he is the master networker, author of The Opportunity Magnet and many more. Jeffrey, thank you very much for coming on today. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
So we just were talking a little bit before this started, and you gave me a really interesting story about what's been going on, obviously, the past year, where you live and how you've been working out.
Well, you know, it's kind of interesting because I live in Manhattan, and I live actually in South Beach. And I live in a building in New York City that has an amazing spa. And, you know, it's appropriate I'm here today because I love gyms. I walk around here and say, whoa, it's just a crazy place.
It's a big place.
Yeah, well, you guys are lucky to come here. But if I was out in Jersey, I would come here in a heartbeat. But anyway, so I live in a building, a 90-story building. I have a great spa, and you know this COVID thing hits, and they shut our gym. You couldn't go to the gym. I know that happened out here, but it was shut down for quite a while. I'm flipping out. I'm in the gym at least 6 days a week, sometimes 7. What do I do? What do I do? I'm really upset. So I had no choice. I had to figure out an alternative. My building's 90 stories, and they're high templates in terms of the floors. They're 10, 12-foot ceilings. So I decide I'm going to start doing the stairs. 90 flights of stairs, carrying 5-pound weights in both hands. After 8 to 10 flights, I'm like, so I stop, I start doing the flies, and then I do push-ups, and I keep going. I got to tell you, the best workout ever. I was like Superman when I was done. I was sweating my you-know-what's off, and afterwards I felt so great that I started getting other people in the building to start doing it. It was kind of funny.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great. I mean, as you know, you're good friends with the owner of Signature Fitness, Warren Feldman. He is a Stairmaster nutball. I mean, he will go on that thing, hit 200 flights, come off soaking wet. It's one of the most impressive things I've ever seen.
Totally.
So, do you mind if I call you Jeff?
Call me whatever you like.
Jeff, all right. So, Jeff, once again, thank you very much for coming on today. A little bit of the research I've done into the world of Jeffrey Meshel is that networking is really everything that you're all about, how you've moved up that ladder in terms of business and success. Where did that come from? What age did you learn that creating long-lasting relationships and really remembering key details about a person would push you further in life?
So, it was probably my latter 20s, 27, 28. And, I really didn't even think about actually that word or what it meant. I sort of just was into people and putting them together. And I wound up joining an organization that was a categoric networking group, and I became like the star player. And I just saw a lot of foibles in it, and ultimately I created my own. And I basically collect people. And sounds kind of silly, but it's
keep them in a little box.
Well, I have 14,000 people in my personal database.
Wow.
And I have a bunch of expressions, but one of which is know who you know. And I have a lot of detail, and everyone, I know the date that I met them. I actually can, wow, I met that person May 5th, 2008. And that does become helpful over a long time. It's a little bit of a discipline, but it's very, very worthwhile.
Well, give me an example. When did that ever happen where you maybe shocked somebody or gave them kind of a pat on the back, like, hey, you don't remember me from back in such and such?
So I was involved in an organization that I was helping called Tiger 21. And, they wanted me to get involved and bring people in as members. So we generated a email blast that went out to my database of 14,000 people, and a lot of people responded. And one gentleman named Bob responded, and he was very interested and, wanted to sit down and talk about it. He happened to reside in Florida. So of course, I go meet him for breakfast, and I remembered him, but I didn't remember him. The name kind of rang a bell, and I looked at the context with which I met him. So I go have breakfast with him. I'm sitting with him. I look him in the eyes, and I said, Bob, do I look familiar to you? And he says, I kind of sort of. I said, well, I met you May 5th, 2008 at Howard Tenney's son's bar mitzvah. And you were doing this. I started explaining, and he looked at me, his chin almost hit the floor. It was pretty cool.
It's great, even in my own world, just a little background of myself. So obviously this is our first time meeting, but networking is something I do in the fitness world in terms of coaches and athletes and people that I've met. And it's given me some great opportunities to work with some world-class athletes. And it's just, you're so right. It's a simple thing of remembering a name, remembering where you met them, remembering a few key details, and it really touches them in a much better way when you see them a few years later. Hey, what's up, Derek? How are you? You remember that time?
Well, it actually goes way beyond that.
Oh, I'm sure. And I would love for you to just kind of, if you can, as shortly as possible, break that down.
Well, there's a lot of things I could say. Consider the fact that we all work out. I mean, it's a true discipline to me. I want to look good, and I think that's a big part of the motivation for doing it. But it's also health and feeling great, and it keeps you young. And we're all doing this. We're all really pushing to achieve that. But the other side of it is business and creating opportunities for ourselves and developing relationships that make us money and build our careers. And so the reality is that if you're mindful about working out, you got to be mindful about what you're doing in business and who you know and what you know. And my whole thing is, I don't ask what's in it for me. I always ask how I can help you. And I'm really literal about that. I created an organization called the Strategic Forum, which is a very high-level networking group. And we have a chapter in Manhattan, and we have a chapter in South Florida. 35 members in each, all CEOs, all very accomplished people. We have monthly meetings, always have like 4 guests present, and all sorts of things happen. And that culture is what I've planted in everyone's heads, and all sorts of cool stuff happens. So I'm constantly meeting really cool people, putting them together with other people. And I'll tell you what, if you look at life like a giant field, which is what I do, I throw seeds all over the place. And a tree grew over there, a tree grew over there. I thought one would grow here, it didn't. It doesn't matter. You live this type of life, good things happen.
It's 100% true. Just last week, we had Manj Singh, who is the varsity defensive line coach for St. Joseph's prep school. Huge football team. And he mentioned exactly what you just said. It's all about the people you know and the people that you keep around you. But planting those seeds will create opportunities that you didn't even knew you could even manifest for your own life. Just now we're meeting. I'm sure I'm coming down to Florida. We're going to hang out.
Done.
It's going to be great. We're going to start some business. Who knows?
First we start with a little rosé.
Oh wow! This energy drink. Forget that. Let's pop some champagne. It'll be fantastic.
I'm there.
So Jeff, more of the business side. Where did you start out? So I know from a little bit we talked about earlier, you're a little bit into the real estate game, kind of growing your business that way. Is there a true passion there, or is it always more been about connecting people and getting everybody together? Or is it all just one big melting pot of positive, passing things from one person to another?
Well, I do a bunch of things. And yes, I'm a real estate guy. Buy things, run them. I'm also a short-term lender in the real estate sector. Right now I'm focusing on buying defaulted mortgages, which there are plenty of them in light of what's transpired.
Yeah.
I'm also a part owner of an investment banking firm, and I get involved in transactions there. All this stuff that I do is fueled by who I know. And the opportunities that come to me, they come through people that call me because I do what I do. And I've had like some amazing things, great stories, and candidly made such a big difference in some cases, and all of a sudden something great just happens. So if you like, I'll share one.
I would love one. I know Warren was mentioning that you have so many fantastic stories. I gotta, any way I can learn and soak up some information, I'm all ears.
So this was a couple-minute story. It's now 2021. About 20 years ago, actually it was 20 years ago, I was really earlier stages of my career and my business, and there was a bank in New York City called Republic National Bank. And at the time, I didn't have secretaries doing things for me. We had someone, but I actually would go to the bank and make my own deposits, the company deposits, and it was just what I had to do. That's what I was doing. And we had a banker, a guy named Cliff, and I would just go in and chat with him pretty regularly. I would every time I went to the bank, sit down, talk to him about his life, and he didn't become my friend. It's not like I socialized with him, but it was always very nice and gracious. One day, I go to the bank and he's not in his office, and then for the next several months, every time I go, he's not there. The light's off. So it struck me. Well, did he lose his job? I didn't know. So I saw his name was still on the door, and I went over to the secretaries and I said, I've noticed that Cliff's not been here. I always come by to see him. Is he okay? Oh, he had a tragedy in the family. I said, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. What happened? He said, well, we're really not at liberty, to talk about it. I said, okay. And I walked away, and I thought about it. I had his cell number and stuff. I wasn't that close a friend where I was actually going to make the call. It bothered me. I debated. I didn't call. Shortly thereafter, next few weeks, he winds up showing up, and he's in his office. I walk in. I said, Cliff, I heard something bad. Are you okay? What happened? He says to me, he looks up, his eyes are teary, and he said that his sister's son got killed in a car accident. He was like 16 or 17 years old, driving across the Cross Island Parkway. 3 other boys were in the car. All 4 died. They hit a curb, they went into a tree, a car blew up. He couldn't identify the son. They were that badly burnt. And his sister and brother-in-law, they're in terrible financial condition. They're actually in foreclosure in their house. It's their only child. He's had to take money out of his IRA to help, and they're, and he's going on. And as he's sharing the story with me, he's crying. I mean, the tears are pouring down his face. And I sat there. I guess all of us, any of us would, you'd feel this sense of empathy, or, like getting upset. I started getting upset.
Yeah.
And, there's really not much I could say. I was obviously very sad and sorry for him. I don't know why I did what I did. I really, to this day, don't know why I did what I did. I decided to go back to my office, and I spent the next 2 days calling everybody and sharing the story I just shared with you, and asked them if they'd write a check to the family. They're in financial trouble, $50, $25, whatever it might be. It's making a difference. It's not a charity. It's not a formal organization. It's a family. And, if you could, I'd appreciate it. I raised, at the time, it seemed like a lot of money, close to $4,000 in a week. And they were all checks at $25, $50. People you cared.
A lot. Especially if it's that amount. There's a lot of contributions from many people.
I called a lot of people. I mean, I instead of working, that's what I worked on. So I get all these checks, and I then go back to the bank, and I walk in to Cliff's office, and I say to him, I close his door. I said, "Listen, I can't tell you how badly I feel." And I decided. I went back to my office, and I started calling people, and I told them the story, and I asked them if they could do something financially, help. So I raised some money, and I take the checks, and I plop them down on his desk right in front of him, and he looks at me. And he starts to cry. I mean, he gets up and he grabs me and he hugs me, and I feel his cheek against my cheek, and I feel tears. And he was like, it was such an emotional experience. And I wound up leaving. I was impacted, and I made a difference. I mean, that's really the story.
Yeah.
I don't know. Shortly thereafter, in the next year, the founder, CEO of Republic National Bank gets killed in a fire. The bank is up for play, meaning it was going to be bought. And it turns out it was. Cliff calls me up. He says, Jeff, I need to talk to you. I need to talk to you right away. I said, what's the matter, Cliff? Please, can we go have lunch? I said, okay. So I go have lunch with him, and he says to me, listen, the bank is being bought by HSBC, giant British bank. They're offering me the best deal I've ever had, more money than I've ever made. It's a great deal. But the executive team from Republic, they're not going. They're starting a new bank, and they want me to come along with them as their lead banker. And and they're offering me to be the lead banker, and they got major people behind them, and I don't know what to do. We're talking about Signature Bank. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of that bank now.
Yeah.
At the time, no one heard of it because it was a brand new bank. And I don't know what to do. Startups fail. I can't take the risk. I need the money for my family. Now I'm an entrepreneur. I started my company in an office that all my desks were next to each other, and I was like against the wall all the time. I had 0, and I kept pushing to make it happen. Here this guy has the opportunity to go with major guys that are starting this bank. I look at him, I take my finger, I go, Cliff, you're going there. You're going to this bank. You're doing this. I don't know. Cliff, you're asking my opinion. I'm your friend. You know that I care about you. Go for it. Do it. I promise you it's the right decision. He said, can you do me one more favor? I said, sure, what? He says, can we set up a lunch with Joe DiPaolo, the president of the bank? I want to get your read on him. What do you think of him? Sure. We have a lunch, great lunch, like Joe, nice guy. And Joe, Cliff's going. Cliff, you're going. Understand you're going to go. And I got to meet Joe.
Yeah.
I obviously opened my accounts with the new bank, Signature. I was a little account. I was just, starting, doing little deals, trying to get ahead. So I was nobody. Fast forward, Signature goes public in 2004. 2006, they're having issues with one of their big investors, and they're shuffling, changing the company around, and they had to go raise some money. They were taking out an investor, and they decided to do an event at the Palace Hotel in Manhattan on 50th Street, invited all their clients to attend with the intention of selling them on the bank because they wanted to raise what's known as a secondary, the money to get rid of this partner. And there was about 300 people in the room. So I get there. I get there a little late. I'm in the back of the room, and the meeting goes on for an hour and a half as to all the things they're doing, growth. Now, my book, this one, The Opportunity Magnet. That book's title is about what do you need to do to make yourself stand out. And I'll get back to that in a few minutes. Anyway, I have a rule. Whenever you attend an event where there's a lot of people there listening, in this case 300 people, always ask the first question. Always ask the first question. Why? I'll tell you in a minute. Anyway, Joe gets back up to the dais, turns to the room. Are there any questions? And I fly out of my chair, flailing my arm in the air.
Pick me!
And he sees me, and he knows me. Jeff, how are you? I said, I'm doing great, Joe. How's everything? Everything good with you? What's happening? And at that point, my first book came out, which is One Phone Call Away, Secrets of a Master Networker. And I was just on the Today Show, and also the cool stuff was happening. How's the book going out? I said, doing great. He did a little chit-chat. I said, thank you so much for he complimented me. I said, Joe, you guys have killed it. You've done all this stuff. By the way, if you ask that first question, make sure it's a good first question. You talk about expansion. You talk about different things you're going to do. I'm down in Florida all the time. I'm back and forth. Have you thought about opening a branch in, let's call it Bal Harbor, which is a great location for you? Have you thought about doing that? If you do, I'll bring you 100 clients because I know everybody. The entire room turned around and looked at me.
Ooh.
He shot me down because they had no interest in doing anything in Florida at that juncture. And I sat down. But the entire room turned around and looked at me. So when I got up and spoke, I gave myself a little bit of a commercial. I said who I was, what I do, and and when he talked about the book. So I stood out among 300 people. 300 people for an hour and a half have been focused in one place. I guarantee you attend any event for an hour and a half, there's a point where you start getting tired. You start to fade. You start to kind of lose your attention. The first alert, the first thing that changes your direction of focus, it's like a shot. You wake up. So I put myself in the position to be that shot. I put myself in the position that I stood out in the room. I go back to my office. An hour later, I get a call from Cliff, my friend, the banker, who's now doing great. I have this friend, Arthur. He's here. He's a client. He asked who you were. I told him about your book. He'd like to meet you. To this day, Arthur and I have become very good friends and have done a bunch of stuff together. A week or so later, I walk into a clothing store on Madison Avenue called Charles Shearet, and some guy comes over and taps me on the shoulder and says, "Excuse me, you were at the Signature Bank meeting. You brought up that's the thing about opening a branch in Florida. I'm in Belleville. I thought that was a great idea, and they shot you right down. What's your name? What's your name?" I back forth. He gave me, "What do you do? What do you do?" I took his card. I got together with him a couple times. I never did anything business-wise, but I could still find him in my database. Shortly thereafter, Cliff calls me up and says, "Listen, there's a cocktail party at corporate headquarters. Joe asked me if he could attend. He wants to ask you something." So I sure. So I go to this cocktail party. There's all these real estate guys, all these people there. I know most of them. Hello, shocking. And I'm going around schmoozing and talking to people. And Joe comes up to me and says, "You have a minute? Can I talk to you?" And I said, "Sure." We walk outside. He says, "Listen, we have 2 board seats that became available in the bank. Senator D'Amato is taking one. We'd like you to take the other." I stood there like, "What? You're public, you're kidding. This happened 15 years ago." I said, of course I did it. The most important, one of the great things that's happened to me in business, the bank has killed it. I'm sure all of you know of it. It's the stock now is $220. They're the first bank to do sort of a digital currency, and it's like really exploding. And I've been involved forever. It's been a great thing, not just from the aspect of it being monetarily rewarding, also from a prestige perspective. So 2 points. One, if you go out of your way and you help people and you do it without an agenda, good things happen. I had no agenda helping Cliff when I felt it, and that was the thing. So if you do nice things happen. And secondly, always ask the first question. I asked Joe, I said, "By the way, how did you if I didn't ask that first question, would you have thought of me for that, that board?" So he says, "Jeff, honestly, absolutely not. I would never have thought of you. And the fact that you did that, and you were instrumental in Cliff coming to the bank. You're a real estate guy. You're a lender. You're an author. You've been on." He says, "You're a networker." It hit me. You stood out. So that the opportunity magnet. What do you need to do to make yourself stand out? Always help people.
100%. There's so many times that people, especially, just like you had mentioned earlier when I said, "Well, when did this whole networking thing start?" You said around your 26, 27, later in your 20s. That's where I am right now. And so many people in this age group forget especially those who haven't had the background, who don't have the financial wisdom. Anybody can become a great networker. Anybody can do that. You don't need to be in a certain level to eventually. Anyone can ask the first question.
Well, and you just made another great statement. Anybody can do it, but you got to do it. Last week I was in Florida. A very close friend of mine. People are sending me people all the time to meet them, to give them advice, or to make introductions, and I always say yes, because you just never know. So a very dear friend of mine's stepson is graduating school. He's trying to figure it out. He's trying to find an internship. And I had lunch with him. I invited him over to my place. We're sitting outside and we're chatting. And I looked at him. He's probably 26. He's a little on the green side, but nice guy. He's trying to get out there and he's trying to find an opportunity. We talked about it. I said, listen, I've got a great idea for you. I said, do you have any friends? That was a silly question, of course. Yeah, of course. I said, I mean, friends that you respect. He said, yeah, friends that have interests different than you in terms of business or doing different things. Yeah, okay, so here's your homework assignment. Find 4 friends that are all different than you. Set up a call. I'll run this for you. And we're going to set up, you're going to create your own networking group. Like I created the strategic forum. Each person there, we're going to go around the room, learn about each other, what our interests are, what we like to do. We'll talk about a bunch of different things. And the agenda of this first meeting is to create a little group where we meet once a month. Anybody can do this. You all can do this too. And amongst your friends, say, you know what? We did our first meeting. Next meeting, we want 2 guests. 2 people like us. We all know other people that we all don't know. Invite them as a guest. They present who they are, what they do. And you start doing that. In every meeting, you have 1, 2 guests, and all of a sudden wants to join. And then you create a group. And everyone's agenda there is to help each other, know each other, open up doors, and create possibilities. And if you do that, you stand out. How many of your friends do that? Probably very little, if any.
Usually zero.
So we all can do that. It's just an effort. It's a way of thinking. And by the way, I'm one phone call away, title for my first book. If you want to reach out to anyone wants to talk to me, it'll be my pleasure.
Yeah, we're going to be having a lot more discussion soon, and I am very sure of that. But what you said there is just, ladies and gentlemen, if you're not listening, I don't think you understand, especially now, the current climate for everyone coming out of college. It's this whole, entrepreneurship is great, but it seems like it's the pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and it's all, you got to do it by yourself. Nobody's going to help you along the way. It's all up to you. People forget that having a genuine conversation with someone will create so many opportunities and open so many doors for you. You don't have to do it alone. And by having people, like you said, starting a monthly call, getting to know those people, helping those people randomly at a bank or wherever you may be, you're creating those connections that are going to help you, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but maybe 5 years from now.
It's like throwing the seeds in the field.
Yes.
It just happens.
You don't have to do it by yourself.
But the one thing that's really important to understand, there are 3 types of people. There are givers, there are takers, and there are matchers. And, a taker is obvious. It's all about me. And a giver, which is what I am, is I always help people. I don't want anything for it. I mean, granted, I want things. I want introduction, but I don't ask for anything. And the matchers are, if I do for you, you do for me. If you become a giver and you go out of your way, good stuff happens. But the most important thing is to train yourself to think this way. You have friends. Every one of you have people in your lives that you respect, you like. How well do you know them? Do you actually ask them about what they're involved in, or how can you help them? Have you actually thought to do that? Going out of your way. Because if you start thinking and doing things that way, I'm not saying like every conversation, but just as a mainstay, a way of thinking, great things will happen.
Yeah, you have to just help those people in the smallest ways. I love the story you just gave me about going to the bank. What was the gentleman's name? Cliff. You made this small impact, which, like you said, $4,000 nowadays ain't going to get you far. But the fact that you did it genuinely, it changed your life, correct?
Well, not only that, when he had to make a life decision, and for him at that point, it was a complete life decision. I'm sure he has other friends and people he knows. He called me to have the lunch to decide what he had to do. And because I went to that lunch and because I told him what to do, that enabled me to meet the president of the bank, Joe, who didn't know me. I'm just this little account at the bank. And he saw who I was, and he got a sense of my personality. He got a sense of who I am in terms of what I do. And it made an impression. Now, I never would have had that opportunity to make an impression if Cliff didn't invite him to come to the lunch, and if I didn't help Cliff do what I did without an agenda, he would never ask me to go to lunch.
That's it. Small connections create bigger opportunities. I know there's one story that always pops in my head. I was listening to one of the many, obviously, entrepreneurs and motivational speeches that are going on nowadays that, everybody, unfortunately, with this is a great tool, yet can be also giving out false information. But gentleman said he, became bankrupt for what reason or whatever, went out to Las Vegas. He was a watch salesman. I'm big into watches. I don't know if you are.
I love watches.
I'm huge into that. I haven't stepped up into the bigger game. I see what you got on your wrist, but we'll get there one day. But the gentleman walked into a room, talked about watches, said, "Oh, you want this? You want a Hue Blow? You want this? You want that? Whatever. Sure, give me a second." I made some phone calls. Within 4 or 5 hours, guy was back to being a millionaire over the networking and the phone book that he had. You said you have 14,000 people.
In my database.
In your database. That is amazing.
That's telling you how old I am.
Stop it. If you keep doing those stairs going up and down, you're going to be just fine. Just fine.
I call myself Superman.
That's it. So as we had said before, the Opportunity Magnet is just one of how many books you've put out now?
Well, my first one's One Phone Call Away, Secrets of a Master Networker. This is my second, which is the Opportunity Magnet, and I just finished my third, which is an edit right now. So that should be coming sometime this year.
And is there a title for that book yet?
Yeah, unfortunately, when you're a giver, you also put yourself in a susceptible, potentially dangerous place. So you got to be smart. I unfortunately had a bad partner who was actually crooked that did a lot of devastation. I had to close down my core company and deal with things that he did. I totally trusted him. I implicitly trusted him. I trusted him so much that he was actually the trustee of my will and my estate. And he's in all sorts of trouble now, and all sorts of things. So I unwound that company, and I was so devastated that if you saw me in 2019, my hands were like this because I just get one shock after another. But I started thinking, and I started really thinking about this word trust. I trusted him so much, and I started writing a book, which I finished. And the title of the book is Trust is a Double-Edged Sword. Trust me.
That's a great title. Well, Jeff, I really appreciate you coming on today. If there's any last-minute words of advice in terms of networking and being more successful, not just in business, but as a whole in life, please give the viewers here at Signature Fitness a couple of words.
Keep working out, keep yourself in shape, but train your mind. Think about the things I said. Think about who you know. Think about starting to build that database. Collect people, collect their attributes, collect who they are, build the database. Change or do something maybe you've done a little bit or do more of. Put people together because you're thinking about it and you're doing it. You're not being asked to do it. Make a difference. Good things will happen.
Jeff, thank you so much for coming on today. Ladies and gentlemen, that is another episode of the SignatureCAST. Go out, read the Opportunity Magnet. I've got homework to do because we're going to have a lot of discussions here in the future soon. Thank you so much. Have a great one, Jeff.
You're welcome, and thank you so much for having me.
Have a good one, guys.